You're single and fabulous. You've got a career you enjoy, friends you love, and passions you pursue. You're extremely busy doing things that bring you pleasure. Travel, yoga, reading, personal development. You don't need a man. You want a man. The question I have for you is whether this man wants to fit into your life exactly as it is right now, or whether you need to make some accommodations for another person. Stick around and I will show you the blind spot that is preventing you from finding a man that you respect who also wants to be with you. I'm Marc, Katz, dating coach for smart, strong, successful women and your personal trainer for love. Welcome to the Love You podcast. Keep listening to discover why devotion to your current single life is impeding your ability to find a great life partner. When we're done, I'll let you know how you could apply to Love You to create a passionate relationship that makes you feel safe, heard, and understood. I work with a lot of smart, strong, successful women. And recently, I talked to someone who shall remain nameless for confidentiality purposes, who had a deep passion for skiing. It could have been anything. We're just going to use skiing, but think of someone who's got a really deep passion for one subject that takes up a lot of their time and energy. Pretty much every weekend during the winter for, November to March, she's on the road enjoying some luxury resort somewhere in North America. And who could blame her? Because hey, skiing is fun. That's her love. That's her passion. And as a woman in her late 30s with means, she should do exactly what she wants with her time and her money. And yet this woman turned to me because she hit a roadblock in her life. She's put a ton of time into her career, which is why she's successful. She's put a ton of effort into skiing black diamonds around the world. But now she's at an age, and certainly the pandemic has hastened this awareness, where she's kind of concerned that her deepest dreams of falling in love, getting married, starting a family, aren't going to come true. And so when we talk, she starts with this premise, and this is her worldview, I'm not knocking it, that she wants to date a man who loves skiing as much as she does because that's her thing, that's her passion, right? And if that's her passion, she doesn't want to be with some guy who doesn't do that. Makes sense, doesn't it? But then we learn what her dating patterns are. Not terribly surprising. The men who like skiing as much as she does leaves basically two types of guys. Ski bums who aren't really great relationship types, right? But they love their skiing and they're glad to have sex with you in between their runs. And these hard-driving CEO types who work hard and play hard and have a second home in Aspen, but ultimately put their personal selfish goals above relationship goals. Hashtag relationship goals. So I asked my client to imagine a guy who's got 6 dogs wanting to date a woman who also loves dog rescue. I asked her to imagine a man who wants to travel with his favorite band while they're on tour for 2 or 3 months. My client thinks that both of those things are extreme. And I gently point out to her that with her dedication to her hobby, skiing, she is no different than the man that I was talking about, the guy who goes on the road with his favorite band or follows his team in spring training, or the person who has 6 dogs. These are extreme passions. They take up extreme amount of energy, and you're pretty much demanding that the other person come around to your way of thinking. The only difference between her and the guy with 6 dogs is that she thinks her passion is super cool and that any guy should want to be a part of it, as opposed to wanting to be a part of his passion, following fish on the road or the Boston Red Sox. So now we see things a little bit clearer. She wants him, right, her alpha male guy, to blend into her rich, full single world without making any accommodations. But she, very clearly, point blank, refuses to do the same thing for him. So this is just one recent story. It's why I'm making this video, because it just came up in conversation. But this is a microcosm of a phenomenon that I hear with my Love You clients every single day. You've worked hard to cultivate a life that you love, filled with independence and freedom. That's hard won. You deserve the spoils of that. You travel where you want, you decorate as you want, you come and go as you please. So we're faced with an inherent contradiction. If you want your freedom above all, that's fine. But you might not get a good husband type. You're probably going to get an avoidant type who also values his freedom above all and who's perfectly fine seeing you once a week, once every 2 weeks when you could accommodate each other. And there's nothing wrong with having a relationship which is based on occasional sex and common interests. But it's not the deep intertwined intimacy that we talk about here in Love You. Right? That's having a boyfriend. That's not having a husband. But if you want a guy who puts the relationship first, right, that's a different ball of wax. Now we have to consider, can you find a guy who puts the relationship first, but does so completely on your terms, where you do what you want, when you want, and he should just pick up and travel with you on a whim whenever you feel like it, regardless of his desires. Any guy who does that, you're probably not going to be that happy with him. You'll think you're happy because he's doing everything your way, but you're not, because this is a guy who's got no boundaries, no balls. You want a man who has a life of his own, who has a job of his own, who's rooted in his community, who has friends and hobbies and feelings about how he spends his time on his weekends. And so the answer is not an either or, it's a both and, right? It's always a both and in our Venn diagram. It's the middle ground. You shouldn't be choosing the male version of you who puts his work and passions first, because now you have two people who are committed to their hobbies and their work more than their relationship. And at the same time, you shouldn't choose some weak, agreeable guy who has no life and follows you around like a puppy dog. That's not a recipe for success either. But by dating a man who's in between, a man who has a life but is willing to compromise on his selfish time by prioritizing you and your relationship, that sounds good. It is exactly what I'm asking you to do for a man. Right? It can't just be one side gives in. So, long story short, good relationships are about compromise. You bristle when men don't compromise for you. And you bristle if you have to compromise for men. So good couples are the ones who get past that. They're the people whose lives change for the better with compromise when they're married. I used to watch football every Sunday. I had Jets season tickets when I was a kid in New York. Sorry, I am a Jets fan. Right? And I used to plan my life around watching the Jets on Sundays. But my life is much richer now that I take the time on Sundays to spend time with my wife and kids. Find a man who feels the same way, right? Who sacrifices some of his previous single life pleasures for the greater good of the family unit, right? And meet him halfway. Now you have something that you can build upon. In other words, your married life shouldn't look like your single life with just a guy dropped into it. Because any man worth having is going to take up a little more space than that, than just following you around and doing what you want when you want. I really want you to wrestle with this because it's important. Common interests have virtually nothing to do with whether you're going to be happy. As much as you think they do, they don't. It's about how you water the garden that is your relationship. And both people putting in equal energy, so there's no takers, there's just givers. Do you struggle with compromise? Right? That's not an attack. Some women have compromised too much and bent their life around a man. That's not what I'm asking either. So if you struggle with compromise and debating your independence versus what it looks like in a marriage, I want you to comment below and come back for the next Love You podcast. I love you, I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week. My name is Marc Katz. Thanks for tuning into the Love You podcast. For more episodes like this on YouTube, click on the subscribe button and ring the bell. Choose all to ensure you get notified when new content comes out. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please share an honest review on Apple. More reviews equals more awareness of the Love You podcast and more love in the world. And if you want to find love right now and you're committed to making healthier choices with men so you could have an easy relationship where you feel safe, heard, and understood, look for the link below and apply for coaching with me in Love You. Thanks a lot.